Hey, welcome back to the Big Rant Show, and thank you for joining me for In the News. Now, this week will be a little bit longer than usual, partly because we missed last week, and also it's the end of, I guess you can call it Season 1 of In the News. I'll be bringing it back in the next few weeks. I need to take a break from doing it. I'll still do my other content, other videos, but it takes a little bit more work and a little more time to do this, and I'm going to try to take a little bit of a break from the extra work on this particular segment. But first off, some sad news. Earlier this week, we found out that Norm MacDonald, actor, comedian, had been suffering from cancer for a few years in private, and he passed away this week. To his friends and family, my condolences. And it's a big loss for the acting and the comedy world. He was a great actor, and he was really funny. I really enjoyed his stand-up. I kind of like that dry sense of humor anyway, so he was always funny to me. I loved his character that he played on The Orville from Seth MacFarlane, which, by the way, comes back later this year or early next year. It's really sad to see him go. It's really sad that he is gone. But rest in peace, Norm MacDonald. Now, in other news, there was AOC at the Met Gala, and people lost their minds over AOC at the Met Gala. Now, if you ask me, it doesn't make any sense why they were mad, because neither side made any sense. I mean, I thought the dress was a bit tacky. I didn't think that was the place to do something, make a political message, but then I find out that people have done that over the years, made different political things and stuff. But she wore a dress that said tax the rich. Now, I completely understand and I completely support her belief there. I believe the rich don't get taxed enough. I believe that the burden is felt by the middle class more than any other group of people. And the uber wealthy, the billionaires and millionaires, don't pay their fair share. So I completely agree with AOC that the rich need to be taxed at a higher rate. I completely agree. I just don't feel that was really the best place to do it. Now, I have heard that this is a thing. That people do make political statements there from time to time. And this year just happened to be one of those years. Multiple people made different political statements with their outfits. But whether or not I agree with what she wore, I gotta admit, it took some intestinal fortitude to walk in to that gala with all those rich people around and wearing on her dress that she was in fact going to tax them. I found that to be hilarious. I also found that to really took some balls. That's the best way I can put that. Because just think about it. You're taking a chance. You're getting this opportunity to go to this place. But then you're going to show up with a dress that tells them exactly what you're going to do if you get your way. And like I said, I completely support AOC's opinion on that front. Also, though, you had people on the right side of things that were complaining. But if she was cares so much about the poor, why was she at this $35,000 a person gala? And apparently that was coming from people that just don't know how these things work. I didn't know how things work, so when I saw people complaining about her paying $35,000 for one thing, I assumed there had to have been something fishy there. So I researched it. I did some looking, and apparently you can get in free to these events if you're a celebrity of some sort. Usually it's not a politician, but sometimes it can be. But a lot of people some of these people get these tickets for free because it's about it's a museum for costumes, and so the whole Met Gala is a way to raise money for this museum, right? I think that's kind of awesome. I think museums are an awesome thing. But apparently, what they do is sometimes there are, artists or whatever, or designers of costumes that want their stuff seen, and they're given a chance by the Met to do this, to have their stuff seen. So if they find a celebrity the celebrity will get a free trip to the Met Gala, be able to go into the Met Gala for free, as long as they wear this dress or outfit or whatever they happen to be tasked to wear. And so I think it's kind of awesome to know that they're giving younger designers and other people that may not be able to get their work out there, give people to get a chance to get their work seen. And I think that was great. I think it was great for AOC to do. And from what I'm reading, that is exactly how AOC ended up at the Met Gala. Not that she paid $35,000 for the seat, but then again, look how much money congressmen make. She's been there for a few years now. I'm pretty sure her bank account's looking pretty nice at this point. Now, so either way you go, I don't see the problem here, right? I don't think just because you have money doesn't mean that you can't care for the poor. And just because you go and do something that's expensive, whether you pay for it or not, does not mean you don't care about the poor. But people just need to stop, they step all over AOC like she is some evil person. And all she's trying to do is make this country better, the best way that she can, from her position. I fully support AOC. I like AOC. I think she is good. I do believe, though, that she is too much of a firebrand to a point, because the people on the right shut her down every single time she speaks. It's just like Hillary Clinton was back in the 90s. She's exactly the same type person. She's hard-headed. She's stubborn. She knows exactly how she wants things to be. And for some reason, Republicans fear women that are headstrong. I personally do not. I think it's awesome. I believe we need more women in leadership roles in this country, and I hope AOC is there for the long term. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Okay. Also in the news, earlier this week, the Biden administration announced these mandates, supposedly, for COVID vaccinations and stuff for businesses. I believe over 100 employees, something like that. And they require these businesses, especially ones that work for the federal government, federal contractors, to make sure their workers are either vaccinated or tested every week for COVID-19. Now, I don't understand why people are upset about this. I don't understand why people are mad about this at all. Because one, businesses have a duty to make sure their workers stay healthy, and that their employees are healthy. They also have a duty to make sure their employees are not passing the virus on to other people. And people are all up in arms screaming they're tyranny, that their rights are being violated. Now, we'll see how this plays out in courts. In the courts, there's already been lawsuits filed. But in the past, the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of mandates. Now, the difference is, for vaccine mandates. But the difference is, when the Supreme Court ruled on it, it was a state case, not a federal case. It was a state had mandated vaccines, and they ruled with the state, on the side of the state, and not the people in the, I guess, whoever brought the lawsuit. But it was not a federal mandate that they had upheld. So we'll have to see how it plays out, because those are two totally different things. A lot of people are saying that this Biden thing will probably get overturned by the Supreme Court if it gets that far. We will see how that works. I'm not 100% sure exactly the merits of the case, and we will see what these cases bring later on down the road. Now, in other political news, Gavin Newsom, governor of California, won his recall election in a pretty much a farce of a recall. The whole thing was because he made people stay inside and wear masks and suggested, it put vaccination mandates in place in his state, which there again, like I said, the Supreme Court has upheld state mandated vaccines for years. It's nothing new. But that was the main thing, COVID, his handling of COVID. But Gavin Newsom won his recall election. The next closest guy was a terrible human being. Hates the poor, wanted to get rid of Medicare, Medicaid in the state. Forget that Medicare is a federal program. But he wants to get rid of Medicare. He wants to get rid of Medicaid. He wanted to, basically he wanted to bring the Texas abortion law to California. There was a lot of crazy things that I've read about this man. But the worst things are things he has said himself. Like saying that slave owners needed reparations. Or the descendants of slave owners deserve reparations. When discussing should the descendants of slaves get reparations, he's like, well, no. Slave owners should get... What? What? Have you completely lost your mind, Larry Elder? And Larry Elder is exactly why Gavin Newsom won this campaign. Because up until he became the front runner, it did not look like Gavin Newsom was going to win. But then the Texas abortion law passed. Getting liberal people being like, no, we don't want this to happen. And then you had Larry Elder. Those two things in conjunction with each other, the Democrats literally just mopped up over 60% of the vote for Gavin Newsom to stay governor. Now, Gavin Newsom has had a lot of problems. He's ignored a lot of the things that more progressive people have pointed out. He needs to do more for the homelessness situation in California. He needs to do something about the constant drought condition that, he has no control over the drought conditions, but he's got to figure out some way to mitigate it better, which is going to take the entire state working together to fix that. Not to mention the fires. He just recently signed a thing paying off the electric company that burnt down an entire city for not taking care of their power lines properly. After all the lawsuits that came out of that, he signed a bailout to the company. I don't believe that was necessary. I believe that they should have let it be taken over by another company or something, because that company does not need to exist anymore, which is something we will discuss in a later video here at the Big Rant Show. Now, like I said, Gavin Newsom has a lot of stuff to work on, especially the homelessness situation. Homelessness in California is absolutely horrendous right now. It's absolutely horrendous. I cannot believe how bad the situation is. I watch Joe Rogan occasionally, and I watched it especially when he was in California, and he talked about how bad the situation was getting there. But people want to act like it's just happening in California, but it's not. It's happening across the country. This is a problem from coast to coast. My old home state of Texas has the same problems in some of the bigger cities. Why? It's not to do with laziness for most of these people. For most of these people, they become homeless because they can't afford rent. Why can't they afford rent? Because even on a minimum wage job, you cannot afford rent in most states in this country. Or you end up in HUD housing. You don't have enough money. It's hard to make ends meet. It's hard to make ends meet when your average rent's over $1,000 a month and you're bringing home $700 a month. On minimum wage. What are you going to do? That's right. You're going to live out of your car because you ain't going to have nowhere else to go. So this is a problem that not only Gavin Newsom in California needs to work on. This is something that even the Biden administration needs to step up and do something about. And I say this because last year I made a video about Donald Trump not doing enough to help fight homelessness. The thing is, nothing has changed under the Biden administration. He has done nothing to make this situation better. So this is something that's going to need to take the governors of states, the mayors, and the federal government to come together and find a way to solve this problem. Because like I've been reading, California has had some great ideas, but it never happens because of cost overruns and all this mess. There's all these different cost overruns. Millions of dollars that it costs them to build these new apartment complexes and stuff for low-income people. But then it prices them out of the area because they still can't afford it, because the price overruns make the rent over $1,000 a month, and especially if it's not federally subsidized housing. Now, I do understand there needs to be requirements. And you'd want to make sure that they're built properly. But from what I'm reading, it's corruption and kickbacks that are causing more problems than anything else in California on building homes for these people. It costs millions and millions of dollars to build these new houses and stuff for these homeless people. Right? And it costs millions more than it should because of the corruption. And then you have the people, the not in my backyard crowd, who won't allow people to build low-income housing in their backyard without a protest, or screaming or crying about it, because they're worried about their land values. Sometimes some things matter more than your land value. The lives of homelessness, of people living in homelessness, they matter. And they deserve to be able to at least have a place to live. We've got to quit pricing people out of rent. I mean, the situation I'm in now, where we could end up with a roommate that we don't even know, because we had to go to a place with individual leases because it was all we could afford. But it's worse in California. The cost of living in California is insane. But it's sad that nobody cares enough to do anything about it. I think Gavin Newsom has some ideas. I think they've tried. They just need to work on cutting the corruption out of it. Get rid of the kickbacks and the extra money spent that doesn't need to be spent. This is definitely an area that the private sector should be able to do this at a lower cost than the federal government. But the problem is, it's still going to get paid by it's still get paid for by the state and the federal government. Therefore, there's all this red tape that has to be cut and all this other BS, and all they do is end up creating bills and laws that give all these other people more money than they deserve. And they don't do anything to help the problem. So California, congratulations on keeping your sanity and keeping your governor and not going for somebody like Larry Elder. But good luck with Gavin Newsom, and keep pushing him to do the right thing, because I think the man could be a good presidential candidate in the future. But we've got to see him actually do something in California before I step up and say I'll support him as a candidate for president of the United States. In other political news today, it was reported that Beto O'Rourke will be running for governor in the state of Texas. I do not know 100% if this is accurate, but this is what I was reading earlier in the day, that Beto O'Rourke will be running for governor of Texas against Greg Abbott. And I believe this is a great idea. I don't know if he'll be able to win. I no longer live in Texas, but I do know when he ran against Ted Cruz, he lost by almost 1 million votes. One of the closest Senate races in my lifetime in Texas, at least my adult life in Texas. And I believe he has a chance, mostly because of the new abortion law. And I believe COVID is going to push a lot of people to a more normal, more moderate candidate, such as Beto O'Rourke. People want to make like Beto is some crazy socialist. He's not. He's really a middle of the road Democrat. He's really not all that far to the left of someone like Ann Richards, who wasn't all that liberal to begin with. But I believe things like that new abortion law, the 6-week abortion law, will definitely be helping him garner votes. I believe people wanting to put an end to the COVID pandemic in Texas will give a big showing to him in 2022. I believe it'll be closer. I'm figuring he'll at least be able to knock it down to, say a 500,000 vote, difference. My hope for the people in Texas is that Beto wins the race, and that's all we can hope for, right? That's something we could really use as a Democrat in Texas. I'm glad that I have left the state. I don't ever plan to go back because of how terrible they've done people there, and how they attack trans people and LGBTQ people, and especially how they're treating women with this abortion ban. So, it's good that we have a liberal running, someone that is somewhat liberal anyway. He's not the crazy socialist that people want to tell you he is. But, he is definitely better than Greg Abbott. And for me, it's interesting for me that Greg Abbott has held on to power this long, as terrible and ineffectual of a governor as he has been for the state of Texas during his time as governor. Rick Perry, who was a terrible governor, was far superior to Greg Abbott in every way. At least Rick Perry, until he ran for president, didn't sit there and he didn't seem like he was lying as often. Maybe he was just better at hiding it. Maybe he was just better at covering it. Maybe he was better at making his lies seem like the truth. I don't know. But Greg Abbott has been a terrible governor. He's attacked the rights of LGBT people, especially trans youth, and the fact that he would attack children is disgusting, and that's disqualifying enough as it is. But then claiming that we have open borders. We don't have open borders. We have all these people down at the border that have come apparently from... How it happened, I don't know. But they ended up coming from Haiti to Mexico to our southern border. Don't ask me how that happened, because that doesn't make any sense to me. Because Haiti is much closer to Florida. But these people aren't running rampant in the state. They're not running through the borders. These people are huddled under a bridge waiting for the Border Patrol to come collect them. They're not trying to enter the state, the country necessarily illegally and go do stuff illegally. No. They're coming into the country so they can get seen. So they can be picked up by the Border Patrol. They're not trying to come in and steal your job or work here illegally. They're literally crossing the border and hiding under a bridge. Now the Border Patrol has closed the port of entry there, and I understand that's understandable because you got some 8,000 to 12,000 people sitting around this area, and you need to slow down the people coming in and out right now. And I get that. That makes perfect sense. But to sit there and make like the borders are open, that we're just letting these people in freely, no. It's kind of hard to stop that many people at one time. And I don't understand why people do this. I don't understand why people are so hateful. And then you've got Governor Abbott trying to lie again, saying that the reason for the spike of COVID cases is because of the open borders of the Biden administration. There again, there are no open borders. People are still stopped. They're still asked to, follow the law. Right now, the Supreme Court did rule that they have to stay on the other side of the border while seeking their asylum. If but here's the thing. That's not what the law itself doesn't state that. The law says that you can be on this side of the border and apply for asylum. That's what our law states. Therefore, they're going to cross the border sometimes. You're not going to be able to stop everybody. You're just not. And I understand that's a lot of people down there. But it's not because of Biden that this is happening. They finally feel safe enough to travel. And here's my solution, though. You have all the people in America, pretty much everybody in America that wants to be vaccinated is vaccinated. So why not start taking some of that extra dosage we have of these vaccines and make it a requirement of entry? That if you're going to enter the country, you must get vaccinated against COVID-19. And before you can enter, you have to have both shots. Or prove that you are vaccinated some way or another. Because I don't see that as an issue. We have all these doses. Make sure they're getting vaccinated as they come across the border. Because I fully support that. I fully support making sure that people are vaccinated before they enter the country. I see no problem with that being a requirement to enter the country, whether you're traveling, normal travel, or if you're an immigrant. I don't see the issue. But speaking of COVID, there have been a lot of deaths to COVID. And right now, most of those deaths have been caused by people that are unvaccinated. Our hospitals are completely overwhelmed right now. There are states where they're over 90% ICU full. We've had reports of people dying because they could not get into a hospital for other ailments. A man died in Alabama, from some 200 miles away from his home, in a hospital, who couldn't get him an ICU bed. They called 43 hospitals in the state, in their surrounding states. Not one hospital had an ICU bed open. They were 100% full, and mostly of COVID patients. As well, earlier this week, it was announced that a YouTuber, formerly known as Basherverse, who had had some legal issues in the past and had left YouTube and had recently returned to doing Twitch and things like that, got COVID and passed away. And he wasn't ever my favorite YouTuber, but I did watch him back in the day at one point. And it's sad to see him die. Clearly because, he didn't get vaccinated. From what I've read, he didn't get vaccinated anyway. And it's really sad because, he had just recently, earlier this year, lost his mother. And he's finally finding his way after that. And finally got back to doing things he wanted to do. And then he got struck down by COVID. Recently, the guy that founded the Freedom Rallies down in Texas against mask mandates and against the vaccine, whose wife wore a mask and wife got vaccinated, I believe. But I do know she wore masks. But the man died of COVID after battling COVID for over 30 days. He died. A woman down in Houston, her daughter was the first child back in September, or early September. Her child was the first child to die of COVID, at least in the state of Texas. But it took the child in less than a day. The woman said she went to bed the night that she had been tested positive for COVID. She hadn't got the vaccine. Her daughter was too young to get the vaccine at 4. But the girl died by the morning. That evening, the child started acting like she felt bad. Or that night, the night before, middle of the night. And she was going to take her to the doctor the next morning. The child died the next morning. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about people dying of this vaccine. People sit there and say that this doesn't happen, that it's not real. There have been 670,000 deaths. COVID is very, very real. We're losing children. We're losing healthy people. All because people aren't getting vaccinated. We're forcing kids into schools but not requiring the vaccine for it. Forcing kids back to school, but we're not making sure people wear masks at schools. I have never seen so many parents work so hard to allow their children to die. If you can get vaccinated, get vaccinated. That's all I can say. At this point, 90% of the people coming down with COVID are unvaccinated. Over 90%. 95% of those in the hospital with COVID are unvaccinated. And just over 99% of all deaths from COVID are in people who were unvaccinated. So if you're watching this and you're not vaccinated, please get vaccinated. I know most people that watch my videos know this. They're smart enough to know to get vaccinated if they can. And if you physically can't get vaccinated because of a medical condition, this is why everyone else needs to get vaccinated. I don't believe in religious exemptions for vaccinations. I don't believe anything like that. I believe there are medical exemptions, and that is it. The fact is, we've been mandated to get vaccines for decades. Even growing up and going to school in the 80s, I had to have certain vaccines before I could go to school. At least by the mid-80s, anyway. Going to high school, I had to provide a shot record every year to prove that I was vaccinated and could go to school. The MMR vaccine, for example. I had to be tested for TB at one point in high school. You're required to have a tetanus shot. All these other vaccines. But we don't mandate flu vaccines, and we don't mandate a vaccine for the COVID-19 virus in our schools. Let that sink in. Anyways, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me for another episode of In the News. I'll be back with more In the News in the next, week, few weeks, maybe a month, probably. But do expect more videos later this week. I have some videos that I really want to do. I want to talk more in depth about Beto O'Rourke. I want to talk about the Gabby Petito case and her boyfriend, among several other topics that I'd really like to talk to you guys about. If you have any topic ideas, though, hit me up in the comments down below and let me know other topics you would like. Also, if you have any questions or any comments about this video or any of my videos, please leave a comment down below in the comment section. Anyways, hit like, subscribe, hit that little bell icon so you get all your content here from The Big Ranch Show, and I'll see you down the road.